Welcome to another Sisters Saga episode. Today we're gonna talk about how to never appear too perfect. So, Angeliki, let's go through the judgments. So, appearing better than others is always dangerous, but most dangerous of all is to appear to have no faults or weaknesses. Envy creates silent enemies. It is smart to occasionally display defects and admit to harmless vices in order to deflect envy and appear more human and approachable. Only gods and the dead can seem perfect with impunity. So, Angeliki, what does the history tell us?
So the first example is from London. We have one couple, Joy and Kenneth. They met at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. They fell in love and they decided to move in together. However, they weren't brilliant actors, so they understood that they cannot become successful. So they started writing together. Ken was basically the one who wrote everything, whereas Joe would just insert some lines and just type the manuscripts. However, they weren't very successful at all. And at one time, they went to jail for 6 months because they kind of defaced dozens of manuscripts and texts and library books. During these 6 months in the jail, Joe started finding his voice, his artistic voice, and he started writing theatrical farces and theatrical performances. One of them actually became very successful and it performed in the London's West End. So Joe started being very successful, and kind of there is a reversal of roles here. Joe started writing everything, whereas Ken was just inserting some lines and basically being the personal assistant of author. And this is when the problem actually arose. Ken was actually very jealous. He started feeling envy of the success of his boyfriend. We had many complications in their personal relationships, and this.
What happened at the end?
Yes, and unfortunately, what happened in the end is very kind of brutal and very sad. So he actually stabbed his boyfriend to death with a hammer.
So, like, blew him with it.
Yeah, blew him with it. Forgot to mention that he killed himself after that, and he left a note saying that if you want to see the truth and why this had happened, just read Joy's diary.
Which meant that he actually knew what was happening into his diary.
Yes, and then he checked, obviously probably the police checked his diary, and they understood that everything comes from his envy. He couldn't tolerate the fact that his boyfriend was more successful than him, that probably he was a little bit put on the corner or on the side of everything, and that's why he killed his boyfriend. So Maria, what's the observance of the law?
Yes, so now we are going to a different place. We are in Florence, and we are talking about the Medici family. And we have spoken about them in a different episode as well. But let's go back in time now, and we're in Florence. And this Medici family was a modest family. They had a lot of apothecaries in Florence, so they were just middle class at that point, till one of the family actually made a fortune through banking, and that was Giovanni de' Medici. And when he died, his son Cosimo took his place and started running the family business. So the family business was actually going really, really, really well, which meant that the family was taking a lot of attention suddenly. Now, at the same time, there was also another family, the Albicis, where they also had a lot of power in the city. And not only that, they had a lot of connections in the government, they had a lot of people everywhere. So Cosimo, instead of kind of showing his power and kind of going against the Albici family, he actually went ahead with them and actually gave his support at this point, till he got so much wealth that it was impossible to ignore anymore. So the Albizzi family took him to prison and exiled him from Florence. So Cosimo didn't make a fuss about it. He actually left, and away as he was still sending money and supporting his city.
So what happened after? What happened in September 1435?
So Albizzi's family were actually toppled from power and they were exiled, but Cosimo immediately after that came back to the city and took back his power. And now Cosimo is in a real interesting position because he has to balance the fact that he is really powerful, so he has to step up, but in parallel he should not make people jealous and not be seen as, big as in terms of ambitious, as busy as in to want to take over the city and like rule the city. So he has to play this interesting balance to not be seen as the previous person, but also he has to really step up because otherwise he's gonna lose his chance.
So how did he use all this power? What did he do next?
Yeah, so he played this very well because he used his power and his money secretly to get a lot of people along with him by, paying them or putting them into places of power. And that was happening though behind the scenes because publicly, when he was be seen in the city, like walking around, he was very modest, very humble, very modest clothes. He was always, being respectful to other people. And so he was giving a really, really low profile. So he actually managed to rule for 30 years till he died. And he was famous for one thing that said, envy is a weed that should not be watered. So he was living by this phrase, as in try to, be modest, not show off to people how much power and how much money you have, and keep it for yourself and enjoy it. And this is what he did. So what do we learn?
So basically, Cosimo made something interesting when he was planning to do something very big. He did it in a way that the initiative appeared to be coming from others, not from him. So he knew how to play the game of appearances. So he was always appearing to be modest, very down to earth, but he did everything indirectly and in the background. He also made alliances with very specific people. He elevated them to positions of power so they could start building this trust. And when he needed them, they could actually step up for him as well.
Interesting. He never put into positions of power any of his friends.
No.
What he did is kind of elevated the class below him, let's say, to positions of power. So there was a common trust because I help you grow, so you give me something back.
And also don't forget to kind of compliment others and make them feel that they are superior than you, because this is how you avoid the feeling of envy from the other side.
Excellent.
So Maria, what are the key learnings?
So the key learnings are trying to understand what this envy is and where it is coming from. So humans really struggle with the feelings of inferiority. So envy is the feeling of you feel that someone is better than you, so it's superior than you. And because we have this inflated sense of ourselves, when we see a better person than us, then this really hit our self-image. So we cannot take it and we get angry about it. But what can you do about it, really, is that first you have to accept your feelings of envy and try to actually understand why you feel envy about this person. Because this really unlocks probably a gap in a skill set that you have or something you want to achieve that the other person has already achieved. So try to understand that, accept the feeling and try to understand what is it that you are lacking or what is it that you really like in this person. And then try to use all your power and your sense to actually build this skill instead of trying to put the other person down.